"My wife has dishonored the name of Wintermere," Duke Theodore announced. Music stopped inside the winter ballroom. Isabella stood beneath the chandeliers while Sir Malcolm placed a hotel register, a diamond bracelet, and a private room key before her husband. Across the table lay a photograph of Isabella meeting another man after midnight. Theodore removed his wedding ring. "You used my name while betraying our marriage." Isabella looked at the man, who had refused every warning she gave him about the missing money. "You believed an accusation in one evening," she said. "You dismissed my evidence for 6 months. The man in this photograph is your lover." "No. He is the auditor you forced me to hire in secret." The ballroom doors opened. Elias Grant entered, carrying a leather ledger. Isabella faced her husband. "And he has brought the name of the person who truly betrayed Wintermere." 6 years earlier, Theodore Hawthorne had admired Isabella because she understood the language of money better than most bankers. They met during negotiations for a group of northern warehouses. Theodore's advisors insisted the purchase price was fair. The buildings were profitable, the shipping routes secure, and the contracts properly sealed. Isabella examined the accounts for less than an hour. "The West Warehouse appears twice," she said. Theodore looked over her shoulder. "One entry is listed under Millbank Storage, and the other under Hawes River Depository. They are the same building." His advisors protested. Isabella produced 2 shipping maps and placed them together. The addresses differed, but the loading entrance, floor measurements, and insurance numbers matched. The seller had charged Theodore twice for one property. "You find theft where respectable men see paperwork," Theodore told her. "Respectable men often expect no one to count after them." He laughed. Within a year, they were married. During their first years at Wintermere, Isabella sat beside Theodore in every estate meeting. She compared rents with bank deposits, checked supplier invoices, and insisted that workers sign for their own wages. Theodore defended her when older nobles mocked her commercial upbringing. "My Duchess understands where every guinea comes from," he once said. "That is more useful than knowing which grandfather first wasted it." Then Theodore inherited greater authority. He became chairman of the Noble Banking Alliance. Ministers sought his support. Dukes who had once ignored him began requesting private meetings. With power came advice. A man of Theodore's standing should not appear dependent upon his wife. A duchess might supervise a household, but financial governance belonged to men. Wintermere's authority would weaken if every decision seemed to require Isabella's approval. Sir Malcolm Vere repeated those warnings more carefully than anyone. He had managed the Hawthorne accounts for over 20 years. Theodore trusted him as he trusted the stone walls of Wintermere itself. "Her Grace has admirable instincts," Malcolm would say. But noble finance is not warehouse bookkeeping. Theodore began holding meetings without Isabella. At first, only minor ones. Then all of them. When she asked to review the reports, he told her Malcolm had already verified the figures. When she found inconsistencies, Theodore called them differences in accounting practice. When she asked for an independent audit, he accused her of insulting a loyal servant. The distance between husband and wife did not begin with another man. It began with closed doors. Isabella first noticed the missing money in the winter rent accounts. Income from 3 villages had increased after a strong harvest, yet the amount deposited in the Wintermere Bank had fallen. She requested the collection records. Malcolm provided summaries. She asked for original receipts. He said they had been archived. Then she examined the wage lists. 27 names appeared on the payroll of the Eastern estate. Margaret Wells, Isabella's private housekeeper, knew every family living there. "None of these people exist," Margaret said. The same handwriting signed for all 27 wages. Isabella found duplicate transport invoices next. 2 companies charged Wintermere for the same deliveries on the same days. One company had supposedly carried stone for a bridge that had never been repaired. Theodore listened to her presentation in his study. She had arranged the records in 3 neat rows. "Rent is disappearing before it reaches the bank," she said. "The wage lists contain invented workers, and these transport companies may be connected." Theodore barely examined the pages. "Malcolm combines expenses across different estates. Then he should be able to explain them. He has served this family since before my father's death. Length of service does not make a man incapable of theft." His expression hardened. "You speak of him as though loyalty means nothing. I speak of numbers that do not agree. You were raised among merchants. You expect every relationship to be proved by an account. And you were raised among titles. You expect every account to become honest when signed by a gentleman." Theodore pushed the documents back. "There will be no outside audit." "Why?" "Because the chairman of the Noble Banking Alliance cannot announce that he suspects fraud inside his own estate. So reputation matters more than knowing whether your people are being robbed." "Enough, Isabella." She looked at the closed file between them. It was the first time he had used his authority to end a question rather than answer it. It would not be the last. Elias Grant had once worked as a senior bank clerk before exposing false investment certificates issued by his employer. The bank dismissed him for disloyalty. 3 months later, the institution collapsed. Isabella hired him with money from her personal account. They could not meet at Wintermere. Malcolm controlled the correspondence room and reviewed every financial visitor. Their first meeting took place in a rented reading room. Elias examined the copied wage list. "These signatures were made by one hand." "I thought so. The transport companies are shells. We must find who receives the final payment. Can you trace it? If the real books still exist." The next meeting occurred near the riverside warehouses. The third took place in a private room at the Bellwether Hotel because Elias had obtained shipping records from a nearby commercial office. Each meeting was professional. Each was also secret. Isabella knew the secrecy could be used against her, but Theodore had forbidden the investigation. And every day of delay allowed more money to disappear. At the Bellwether, Elias spread documents across the table. "Someone keeps 2 sets of accounts," he said. "The clean books go to the Duke. The true payments are recorded elsewhere." "Where?" "A private storage room beneath Marwood's club." "Can you enter it?" "I can try." A flash appeared beyond the window. Isabella turned. A photographer stood across the street. By the time Elias reached the glass, the man had vanished. "We have been seen," he said. "No," Isabella replied. "We were meant to be seen." 3 days later, her diamond bracelet disappeared. Beatrice Hawthorne, Theodore's mother, claimed she had sent it to be repaired. Margaret checked with the jeweler. No bracelet had arrived. Then rumors spread through London. The Duchess of Wintermere had been seen entering a hotel after midnight. She had rented a private room with an unknown man. A servant claimed they remained alone together for hours. Theodore heard the whispers before Isabella could warn him. He confronted her outside the library. "Who is Elias Grant?" "A financial investigator." "You have met him repeatedly?" "Yes, in private rooms. Because Malcolm controls every financial meeting in this house. You went behind my back. I investigated behind your back because you closed every door in front of me. His face tightened. Do you understand what society is saying? Do you understand what is happening to Wintermere's money? I asked about the man, and I answered. You expect me to believe this is an audit? I expect you to examine the evidence before choosing what embarrasses you most. Theodore walked away. That evening, Sir Malcolm requested permission to present a private matter during the winter ball. Theodore agreed. Isabella was not informed. The ballroom glittered with silver garlands and crystal lamps. Members of the banking alliance filled the room. Every person whose opinion Theodore feared was present. Sir Malcolm stopped the musicians after the second dance. He carried a leather case to the center table. The Duke has a right to know why Wintermere's accounts have been questioned by his own wife. Theodore stood beside him. Isabella crossed the room slowly. Malcolm displayed the hotel register first. It carried Isabella's name and a signature similar to hers. Then the room key. Then her missing bracelet. A witness claimed it had been found beneath the hotel bed. Finally, Malcolm revealed the photograph. Taken through glass, it showed Isabella and Elias standing close together. Elias's hand appeared near her waist. The table between them had been cut from the image. So had the financial documents. Beatrice looked at Isabella with open contempt. A Hawthorne wife does not meet men in rented rooms. Isabella examined the photograph. A Hawthorne advisor should not need a cropped image to prove the truth. Theodore's humiliation had already turned into anger. Did you meet him there? Yes. Alone? Yes. A murmur moved through the ballroom. Did you conceal those meetings from me? You forbade the investigation. That was not permission to deceive your husband. No. It was evidence that my husband preferred obedience to truth. Theodore removed his wedding ring and placed it beside the photograph. You used my name while betraying our marriage. Isabella stared at the ring. 6 years of partnership reduced to an object laid beside forged evidence. You believed an accusation in one evening, she said. You dismissed my evidence for 6 months. The man in this photograph is your lover. No, he is the auditor you forced me to hire in secret. Malcolm smiled faintly. Then perhaps Her Grace can produce this supposed audit. Isabella looked towards the ballroom entrance. I intended to. The doors opened. Elias Grant entered with 2 officers behind him. His coat was torn at the shoulder, and dried blood marked one side of his collar. In both hands he carried a heavy leather ledger. Sir Malcolm's face lost its color. Elias placed the book on the table beside the bracelet and photograph. This was hidden beneath Marwood's club, he said. 2 men attempted to take it from me before I reached the street. Theodore looked at the ledger. What does it contain? Elias opened the cover. The first page listed Wintermere rents at their true value. The second recorded payments to invented workers. The third showed transfers into companies secretly owned by Sir Malcolm Vere. Then Elias turned to a later entry. It recorded payment to the photographer who had followed Isabella. Another listed the purchase of a diamond bracelet from a servant inside Wintermere House. The final entry concerned the winter ball. Beside the amount was a single instruction. Present the adultery evidence before the banking alliance. The Duke's pride will complete the removal of his wife. Every face turned towards Malcolm. He stepped back from the table. Then the ballroom lights went out. The ballroom fell into darkness. Guests shouted. Glass struck the floor. Chairs scraped across the marble as men reached for doors they could no longer see. Isabella did not move. She heard the ledger slide across the table. Then footsteps rushed past her. "Malcolm," Elias called. A side door opened. For 1 second, moonlight cut across the room and revealed Sir Malcolm running towards the western corridor. Theodore's voice rose above the confusion. "Seal every exit." No one obeyed immediately. The servants had been dismissed from the ballroom before Malcolm presented his accusation. The guards outside had received no warning that a financial investigation was taking place. Isabella reached beneath the central table and found the small service bell used during formal dinners. She rang it 3 times. The signal meant fire. Every trained servant in Wintermere knew it. Doors opened along the rear wall. Footmen entered carrying lamps. Household guards followed them. "Close the western staircase," Isabella ordered. "Search the accounting rooms and the carriage court. No one leaves with papers." One guard looked towards Theodore. The Duke stood beside the table, his removed wedding ring still lying near the photograph. "Do exactly as the Duchess says." The order came too late to restore what he had broken, but it stopped the room from collapsing into panic. Light returned gradually. Elias still held one side of the ledger. Malcolm had attempted to take it in the darkness, tearing several pages loose from the binding. Margaret gathered them from the floor. Theodore looked at the entries again. Could this ledger be forged? Elias met his gaze. It could. That is why Her Grace did not intend to rely upon it alone. Isabella turned towards the assembled bankers. "The accounts will be examined publicly." Beatrice stepped forwards. "Surely this matter should be discussed within the family. It ceased to be private when my husband accused me before this room." Theodore flinched. Isabella did not soften the words. "The evidence against me was displayed publicly. The evidence proving why it was created will be treated with equal visibility." Malcolm was found in the old chapel passage. He had attempted to reach the carriage court through a servants' corridor, but 2 footmen blocked the final door. In his coat were a key to Isabella's rooms, a packet of forged hotel stationery, and a list of payments to 3 witnesses. He was brought back to the ballroom under guard. His composure had returned. "The Duchess arranged all of this," he said. "She hired Grant, created a false ledger, and placed those papers in my coat." Margaret set the recovered pages beside the book. "Then perhaps Sir Malcolm can explain why the ink matches the account books in his office." He smiled. "Many clerks use the same ink, and the numbering." She pointed to the corners. Every page bore a sequence matching gaps in the official Wintermere ledgers. Elias added 3 bank drafts. These transfers left Wintermere accounts and entered companies controlled through Sir Malcolm's solicitor. Malcolm looked towards Theodore. "I acted under broad authority. Funds were moved to protect the estate." "Into properties registered to your sister's husband?" Isabella asked. "Temporary holdings, and the invented workers. Administrative errors. 27 identical signatures. A careless clerk." "The photographer?" Malcolm's eyes moved towards the photograph. "I have never met him." One of the ballroom doors opened. 2 officers brought in a thin man carrying a camera case. His name was Arthur Pike. He admitted Malcolm had paid him to follow Isabella and Elias. He had been ordered to photograph them through the hotel window, then remove the table from the final print. "The original plate is in the case," Arthur said. A servant placed a lantern behind it. The unaltered image appeared against a white screen. Isabella stood several feet from Elias. A table covered in ledgers separated them. Elias's hand, which had seemed close to her waist in the cropped version, was actually pointing towards a column of figures. Murmurs spread through the ballroom. Theodore stared at the image. The scene he had treated as proof of adultery had never shown intimacy, only work. Margaret produced the hotel register. The signature attributed to Her Grace lacks the joining stroke between the first two letters. She never signs without it. A clerk from the Bellwether Hotel confirmed that the room had been reserved before Isabella knew the meeting location. He had accepted the booking from a man using Malcolm's office seal. The bracelet came next. Beatrice's face changed when Margaret placed the jeweller's receipt on the table. This states that Your Grace ordered the bracelet removed from the Duchess's rooms for repair. Beatrice looked towards her son. I believed Malcolm required it for the insurance record. You gave him my wife's jewelry? Theodore asked. I was told there had been irregularities. Isabella faced her. You supplied the object used to accuse me of adultery. I did not know what he intended. No. You only knew you disliked me enough not to ask. Beatrice lowered her eyes. Theodore did not defend her. Malcolm made one final attempt. He pointed towards Elias. This man still met the Duchess secretly. Whatever the accounts show, she deceived her husband. Theodore looked at Isabella. For a moment, the old fear returned to his face. Not fear of losing money, fear of appearing foolish before the men whose respect he valued. Isabella recognized it immediately. The secrecy was mine, she said. I chose it after you prohibited the investigation. Theodore's jaw tightened. That does not make it harmless. No, it makes it the consequence of your refusal. The room waited. Malcolm saw the hesitation and stepped closer to Theodore. I have served your family for 20 years. Will you destroy that loyalty for a wife who met another man behind your back? Isabella said nothing. She had explained. She had documented. She had exposed the forged evidence. She would not now beg her husband to choose reality. Theodore looked at the ledger, the original photograph, and his ring upon the table. Then he faced the guards. Take Sir Malcolm into custody. Malcolm went still. You would believe her over me? No, Theodore said. The answer surprised everyone. I believe the evidence I should have examined before I humiliated my wife. Malcolm was removed. Theodore did not put his wedding ring back on. He picked it up and placed it in Isabella's hand. I have no right to decide what this means now. She closed her fingers around it, but did not wear it. Then Theodore faced the banking alliance. The Duchess of Wintermere did not dishonor this house. His voice carried clearly across the ballroom. I did. Beatrice whispered his name. He continued. My wife brought me evidence of missing funds for 6 months. I dismissed it because the accusation threatened a man whose loyalty was convenient to believe. He looked towards the false hotel register. When evidence was arranged against Isabella, I accepted it in one evening because public humiliation frightened me more than injustice. Several bankers avoided his gaze. Theodore removed the chairman's chain from his coat. I resign from leadership of the alliance until every Wintermere account has been independently examined. Lord Ashford, the senior banker, stepped forwards. That is unnecessary if Sir Malcolm acted alone. It is necessary because I made his actions possible. Theodore placed the chain on the table. No institution should be led by a man who treats suspicion as proof when his pride is involved. Isabella watched him surrender the position he had protected at the expense of their marriage. It did not repair the damage, but for the first time, he accepted a cost without asking her to reduce it. The independent audit lasted 4 months. Malcolm had stolen from rents, wages, repairs, and investments for nearly 11 years. His private companies owned land purchased with Wintermere money. Several officials had accepted payments to approve false invoices. Lord Felix admitted that he had rented Malcolm the storage room beneath Marwood's club and ignored the sealed files kept there. Theodore opened every personal and estate account to examination. He also published a correction in the newspapers. It named Isabella as the person who had discovered the fraud. It stated that the adultery allegation had been manufactured. It described Theodore's public accusation as unsupported and wrongful. He refused every advisor who suggested softer language. Beatrice's role also became public. She lost authority over Isabella's jewelry, schedule, and household staff. When she asked Isabella to omit her name from the final report, Isabella refused. "You called silence a wife's duty," she said. Malcolm used that silence as his safest room. Isabella remained in the southern apartments. She did not resume shared dinners. She did not return Theodore's ring. Instead, she designed the new Wintermere accounting system. Rent collectors could no longer prepare their own summaries. Workers had to confirm wages directly. Every company receiving estate money required independent ownership records. 2 separate ledgers would be compared each month. No member of the Hawthorne family could refuse an audit, and any formal accusation against an employee or relative had to be investigated before being announced. Theodore signed every rule. He did not describe the authority as something he had granted Isabella. He acknowledged that she had earned it before he chose to recognize it. Months later, Isabella entered the council room for the first time since the winter ball. 2 chairs stood at equal height. Theodore waited beside the table but had not taken either seat. Between them lay the first monthly audit. He looked different without the chairman's chain. Less protected, more honest. "I once asked whether you had betrayed me," he said. "And now I ask whether I have done enough to become a man whose trust would be worth receiving again." Isabella placed the wedding ring beside the unopened ledger. "Not yet." Pain crossed his face, but he nodded. She opened the first account. "Begin with every figure you were once too proud to let me examine." Theodore sat opposite her. He did not defend old decisions. He did not ask how long forgiveness would take. He began with the first missing payment and answered every question. Their marriage was not restored by Malcolm's arrest. Innocence could be proven in a ballroom. Trust could not. But, as daylight moved across the council table, Theodore no longer demanded that his Duchess prove her loyalty. He began proving that the truth would never again be sacrificed merely because the Duke found suspicion easier to bear than shame.